Hey, welcome back. This is Ken Himmler, and today I really want to debunk some of the misinformation that is swirling out there in the whole internet world. So I came across an article this morning, and here's the title of, and I'm going to give credit or lack of credit where credit is due. It's called the Business Insider. This article was published on November 11th, 2024 by an Ali Kelly. Let me read you the headlines. Trump's plan for Social Security would help baby boomers in the short term and cut benefits for anyone older. So let me explain why this is so incorrect as to how it actually will work. So I'm going to highlight some of these parts of the article, and this way you can feel rest assured that everything that you read out there is not always correct. Sometimes they can twist the facts, and unless you understand sometimes the velocity of money and what happens on the back end, it can be very misrepresented. So it basically goes on to say Trump plans on changing Social Security. People on Social Security are being killed. And one of the things I'm going to do is no tax for seniors on Social Security, and I'll get it done quickly, Trump told Fox and Friends in August. Okay, here's what it says, and this is why it's so off base. For some baby boomers, lower Social Security taxes could mean larger monthly checks in the short term, but experts in fiscal policy. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Experts in fiscal policy are the people that got us into this fiscal mess to begin with, right? It says that they're going to predict that the Social Security tax cuts, along with other campaign promises made by Trump, could quickly drain the National Social Security Fund. Okay, here's where it's going to get good. And we're going to talk some very simple macroeconomics. This would put benefits at risk for low-income retirees and younger generations who may rely on that income as they age. Well, first off, let's cover this. What 25-year-old or 35-year-old is going to depend upon Social Security? It was already due to go bankrupt. And that has nothing to do with the last 4 years. The 4 years before that when Trump was president, the 4 years before that has nothing to do with this. This goes all the way back to the 60s and 70s when some genius at Social Security said, well, Roosevelt put this in, and now let's add in disability, and let's add in SSI, and let's add in all these other additions without accounting for population growth and the increase in the tax on your paycheck. Now, we already know, had Kamala gotten in, they wanted to charge us on Social Security up to $400,000. Right now, it's about $180,000. And again, that's 6.2% on your side if you're an employee, 6.2% on your employer's side. So there's 12.4% being paid out for Social Security. That didn't even include the Medicare penalty, the NIT tax, all the other junk that they add on. But listen to this. This is where it gets really good. So it goes on to say that the average check of a Social Security recipient in 2024 for 72 million Americans was $1,924. And it says, obviously it's true, you can begin taking Social Security at 62 or wait till full benefits at 67. Now again, if you haven't watched the last 4 videos that I did on Social Security, you'll understand why waiting might be absolute financial destruction, bad decision. But here's where it goes off the rails right here. It says, Insider heard from older adults with limited retirement savings, many of whom were struggling to afford necessities such as housing and groceries on their fixed Social Security income. Well, of course you would. With the inflation that hit 9, 10, 11% for the last 4 years, and Social Security is based upon the government's COLA increase, of course you're going to get strangled because Social Security is not keeping up with the true inflation because the government changes how Social Security is actually increased. And it's not increased at the actual rate of your expenses increasing. This is why you're going to see something like this. At the beginning, if I can get on camera here, see if I can do this the right way. Okay, you're kind of on this pathway, right? But Social Security is going this way and your expenses are going this way, and you have that X of death. That's when it crosses over and the Social Security fails to even keep up with basic inflation. That has been a problem for years, right? This is not something new. It's not something that Biden did, Obama did, Trump did. This has been the common problem, right? But here's what it says. It says income tax and Social Security apply to all beneficiaries with annual household income above $25,000. Okay, so here's how tax on Social Security works. You take, it's called modified adjusted gross income, or MAGI, the death of Maggie, right? And here's how you do it. Take 50% of your Social Security, add that to all your other taxable income. If you exceed $25,000 in income, including half of the Social Security, then you pay tax on 50%. Then if you get to $33,000, then you pay tax on 85% of your Social Security. Now, let me be clear about this. This isn't Trump destroying the system, and it isn't Obama that destroyed it. It isn't Biden that destroyed it. This is a fundamental issue that Social Security is completely messed up. And people look at this like a pension plan. It's not a pension plan. It might be a supplement to go out to dinner. It might be a supplement to maybe pay your property taxes. But as you get through that cross of death, that inflation has outpaced it, it's not going to help you into retirement. And so you have three classes. You have about 65% of the country is middle class. About 15% is low class, meaning not low class in that manner, poverty level, you want to call it that, living on just Social Security, okay? For those, and the article does say that correctly, it says, Social Security tax cuts would hurt low-income retirees and younger generations. Half of that is actually accurate. It would hurt younger generations, but let's be real, would it, if Social Security was already designed to be bankrupt in 2035? Is it really going to hurt the person that's already making $30,000? Absolutely not. The article is incorrect. Allie, you got to get your facts straight, lady. Assuming you're a female. If you're a male and I used that incorrectly, my apologies, but you got to get your facts straight. It's not going to hurt the person making 30 grand a year, right? Because they're already not paying tax on Social Security. Nowhere in this proposal is it saying they're going to reduce the amount of, or change the way that COLA is actually increased on Social Security. It's not saying it's going to change anything for low-income households. It will, in fact, change for the middle class, which makes up over 65% of our country. If you're wealthy, will it make a difference? No, it's not going to make a difference, because if you're wealthy, you're not looking at $25,000 a year as a big nut. You're looking at that like, well, depending on where you're at financially, it might be gas in your boat for a month or two. I don't know, but it might be gas in your jet. It's not going to affect wealthy people. And the article is incorrect. It's not going to affect anybody in that low income. All right, let's go on as to the misinformation about this article. It says that Social Security is going to be depleted in the next decade. That's accurate. There's nothing incorrect about that. But here, this is where you got to look at media and the political background to what's coming out. And hopefully I can give you the truth. No political bias, just economics. Here's where it gets good. A report published in October by the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget said Trump's campaign promises, which also include ending taxes on tips, reducing some income taxes, and expanding deportations and imposing tariffs, here's where the big lie comes in, would take a toll on Social Security fund, making it insolvent. Within the next 6 years. Let's look at that. Where in any of those adjustments would that have an effect on Social Security? It doesn't. It says, the report said that those policies would also lead to a 33% benefit cut in 2035. Not correct. It's a 10% increase from what Congressional Budget Office projections under the new law. Well, where do the taxes from Social Security come in? They come in from what? Payroll taxes. So the problem that we've always had with government, you got a bunch of bean counters that are politically swayed in one way or the other, and what they don't recognize is what good presidents and good economic people understand. And it's a terminology that Benjamin Graham came up with. It's the velocity of money. Here's the bottom line. If you cut taxes, now they're going to say that by cutting taxes, it's going to lead to higher inflation. Incorrect. That is not correct. Having free money and giving away free money, like $75 billion in student loan forgiveness, like funding all the illegal immigrants, like, I can go on and on, the fake inflationary act, where we heard that, I think it was the wife of the congressman in Colorado at a party, she had a little bit too much to drink and she joked around. We got it passed, but we all know none of that's really intended for EV or climate control because they reapportion it to other places. That's where inflation comes into play, not this misinformation. Because when you have Social Security, where's that money come out of? Paychecks. How do you increase revenue to paychecks? Increase jobs. How do you increase jobs? Give businesses less regulation, lower interest, and lower taxes. The lower taxes, which do not fund political agendas, can go back in. As a business owner, I know that firsthand. I can hire more people when I'm paying less in tax. I can funnel that. That's called velocity of money. That's where I take $100,000 I might have given to the IRS and I hire somebody for $100,000. Why? Well, if I give the $100,000 to the IRS, they give it to Congress. I don't know what Congress does with it. Sometimes they're sending billions overseas for warfare to other countries. That does nothing at all for our internal solvency of our economic situation. However, if I take that $100,000, I employ one person. Right out of the gate, $12,400 more goes into Social Security. $12,400, 12.4% of that money. That doesn't even include the additional income tax that new employee is going to pay to the government, right? So you also now have the velocity of money where it multiplies. And this is what Benjamin Graham used to talk about, is if you take that $100,000 and $12,400 goes to the government for Social Security. I'm not counting Medicare, just Social Security. And then you take federal income tax. Now what happens is that you've just employed a new person and maybe they have $75,000 to $80,000 after tax. Now what do? They spend on utilities, they spend on cars, they spend on whatever it is, right? That in addition now is going to increase the velocity of money. Why? I go buy a car, it's a $50,000 car. I'm going to pay sales tax, that goes to the state. I'm going to employ a salesman, a mechanic, a dealership, the accountants of the dealership, all the different subsections of that dealership as soon as I buy that automobile. When you multiply that, it could be tenfold of what it would be as if I just handed over $100,000 to the federal government so they can mismanage it and spend it in inequitable places. Okay, let's go on. It says lower income boomers, incorrect, and younger generations, correct, agree, will most likely feel the brunt of these cuts. It says lower income boomers live on Social Security, already pay less in tax, so they wouldn't see the benefits Trump promised. Isn't that opposite of what you just said? You're not going to see the benefits, but it's not going to hurt you because you're not paying payroll tax. You're already under the tax-free limit. And it says many don't have retirement savings to fall back on. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a decision people make while they are working. They make the decision whether they want to buy an Xbox and pay for games or whether they want to sock that away into some other savings. Now, some people will cry, well, I don't make enough money. I don't make enough money. Listen, I owned 70 rental units. And what I learned is that when I went to my lower income rental units, here's what I found. They couldn't pay their rent. But boy, they had the big screen TV. They had lots of food. They had all the little toys. They had jewelry. They had all the money they wanted to spend in the right places that they wanted to spend it on, but they never had enough money to pay their rent. So I think if people would think through economically what the right decisions are with their money and how they save and what they spend on, people would have a little bit more money, even in that lower echelon of income and asset earners, okay? Here's what I really was disappointed with. There's actually a CFP, Certified Financial Planner. Now again, just because somebody passes the test does not mean that they're smart. If you've ever dealt with doctors, lawyers, CPAs, anybody that's passed a professional test, you know what I mean, right? Just because they could answer the questions or memorize the questions and answer right does not mean that they're that smart. So here's what's really interesting. Let me find this guy because, yeah, here we go. Yeah. He added older Americans who are wealthy or middle class would feel less stress from Social Security cuts and might benefit in the short term. It would help people in the middle class. Yes, absolutely agree with that. People that have the luxury of having a 401k or an IRA or have multiple sources of retirement income. And it says, to be sure, any changes Trump hopes to make to the tax or Social Security system would need to be approved by Congress, and we're working on getting that done. It says people are living longer. Not correct. Absolutely not correct. If you look at what happened during the pandemic, so we have a client in the medical field, and back in 2016, insurance companies that issued annuities had a group of actuaries that actually determine what life expectancy is. Here's what's interesting. There was a conflict. This group of actuaries back in 2016 said that people are living longer. How does that benefit the annuity business? Well, what happens is if you're saying people are living longer, the annuity companies have to make a change in what they pay, and they pay less. But what if the truth was they weren't really living longer, but it was a way that the insurance companies could actually make more money? Skeptical might be. Now, in the same tune, if they're saying here people are living longer, we have this conflict with what the AMA said. And how do I know about this? Well, we had a doctor that came to us for some help in 2015. He says, I bought this annuity and now they just lowered the rate and I'm only making 1.5%. What is going on? I said, well, what I've read is this group of insurance companies got together and it's called the CSO, Commissioner Standard Ordinary, and they get together and they determine what is going to be the new mortality tables. And they said, people are living much longer. He goes, no, that's not true. He says the AMA has actually said, we're living less because of the bad food, the pollution, all the other things that have encountered. We did have this bell curve, but it dropped off. So when people are saying they're living longer and Social Security will have to support that, that's actually not accurate. In addition, when the pandemic hit, we actually lost a few years of life expectancy. But here's what's interesting. Pre-pandemic, Social Security still said it was going to go bankrupt in 2035. Even though we've lost about 2.5 to 3 years in average life expectancy, we're not technically living longer, but Social Security doesn't seem to have made that adjustment. So it goes on to say, and this is what I thought was crazy. So the CFP basically says it's going to cause more inflation. You know, I'm not going to mention your name by name, but if you're watching this, you know who you are. Get your velocity of money education down, buddy. You don't increase inflation by actually saving people taxes. It creates the velocity of money. So, to conclude, where do we stand with Trump in all this media is going to destroy Social Security? It's inaccurate. It's the articles that are being written don't have a basis in facts. A lot of these are politically motivated. And as you know me, I'm not here to talk politics. I don't care. Social issues, religious issues, whatever else. I'm talking economics. The economics are you reduce taxes, you will have more money flow, faster money flow, velocity of money, which does not create inflation, but it creates prosperity. See you next time.